Good morning. Let me just start by saying thank you, Lindsay and MS Society, for inviting me and for putting on this really worthwhile conference that I know impacts today and will impact the generations to come. I'm passionate about partnerships, and I feel it's a privilege to keep on actually where Frances Hesselbein left us, because these are problems we are dealing with that are beyond one sector to deal with. And why would we try to change the world ourselves if we have a business sector who is more than willing to come along, and they are very keen, and I work as a consultant in that area with businesses and with nonprofits, and I'm sharing with you today in a very practical, hopefully, way what I see the risks are in making these partnerships happen.
This public trust dimension in the third sector is precisely actually about that, which is about doing the right thing when nobody's looking. The second quote's a very interesting one because it comes from a guy who himself has, at least according to my reading of the American press recently, or a little while ago, has been embroiled in some very interesting controversies about financial misdealings in the Nature Conservancy. But however, his quote I think is a really interesting one. I really believe, says Mr. McCormick, that in the next century the most influential organisations on the planet, no less, will be non-government organisations.
Thanks very much for inviting me to join you today. The session is about board and management perspectives, and I'd like to focus on the board itself as a source of risk and dysfunctional relationships. Because if the board itself loses the plot, it quickly leads to a contaminated organisation. And much of my time is spent working with boards. I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly, both in the for-profit and the not-for-profit sector. And so what I thought I could do most usefully here today is to talk very briefly about where boards in general can go wrong and some special challenges for not-for-profit boards.
Thank you, and thank you to Lindsay McMillan for inviting me to speak. I'm going to follow Colin and actually take a slightly different twist on that, and I'm going to take a management perspective and have a look at how management is confronted with risk and give it some dimension and a bit of structure.
I'm still a lawyer, and that gives me a certain perspective. I'm also now a board member of 2 not-for-profits and 2 not-for-profits, 1 government and 2 listed companies. Audit committee, risk management committee of 2 of those, and chair both of those. So I have a bit of a legal background and currently a strong interest in both not-for-profits and the risk management function as part of the audit committee. The things that I want to talk about really are, given those risks, and it's totally right what Nick said, there is a range of risks that were put up there, which I agree with, and every one of you will have others. Given those, given the type of organisations that we're involved in, what approaches do we take to try to manage it? How do we try to deal with it in a practical sense?
We're going to talk about partnerships that work, and the way that we will handle this session is I'm going to make a few brief introductory comments about how to think about partnerships and relationships.
Maybe 15 years ago or so to Bolivia, and he felt that if he just started a company that sold high value-added products that was created by the indigenous communities of Bolivia, included them in a very new way in the distribution chain so that the value added of creating organic and high-quality products that can uniquely be grown in Bolivia, he could do something much more systematic about poverty in Bolivia. And for the last 15 years, he's created stores and products that have, in fact, accomplished many of the goals that he had. He's certainly not happy that it's still at a smaller level than he liked, so it's only hundreds and perhaps a few thousand people rather than tens and hundreds of thousands of people, but everybody would agree that he's had remarkable success where many other governmental and NGO programs have failed.
Although, we were having this check dangled in front of us, which was essentially the price on the open market of a good sponsorship development person, but it was about 2 or 3 times what any one of the organisation was currently paid. And the image of the sort of sponsorship guy rocking up in his BMW and parking out the front next to the old Valiants and the E.H. Holdens and sort of coming and going, oh, I've got you another sponsorship, and then zooming off again, actively undermined the notion of a healthy community of people, because although the dollars were coming in, it broke down the whole egalitarian approach. So that was the major threat to us.
That we would pose and then enter into discussion with you. First, what did you hear today that amused you? And I think the last session may be the source some amusement, but also what did you hear that inspired you? And then finally, what has not yet been discussed in the course of this summit that ought to be discussed? Are there any unspeakables, undiscussables that we at least ought to get out on the table as part of our effort to develop the leadership capability and advance the sector? So
this morning we explored two leadership challenges, namely leading change and finding new directions, which was followed by generating and measuring success. And measurement is something that in the commercial world comes second nature, but often in the not-for-profit world it's something that we don't pay enough attention to. After lunch we had time to share the reactions to the morning's stimulus, as well as sharing our own organisation's experiences with our fellow delegates. We now return to an ever-present leadership challenge, and that is the scanning of the macro environment in which we all have to operate.
A little bit about the research that we're going to present to you, which is very much a slice of what is available to people who buy this research, but we're giving it to you for nothing. So sit back, relax and enjoy, if you like, a slice of what Australia looks like, what it's going to look like, and some of the issues you're going to have to grapple with as leaders going forward.
This particular survey addresses most of the fundamental issues that exist in the workplace, but it addresses it from all sectors. It actually asks the employees the question. It then asks the senior managers the question, and it asks the business leader the question. And so in some of the tables we're about to show you, you'll see some of the gaps that exist in the understanding between business leaders and employees. And gap resolution is a solution that is going to make organisations competitive in attracting the best people in the future.
You've been working very hard for the last day and a half. There's been a lot of presentations. You've been working hard in your leader circles. We've been looking at case studies. This afternoon is a time for a change of pace and a change of frame. We're going to relax and hopefully have a little fun. We have before us 6 proven leaders, and I'm going to introduce them to you in a moment. And this afternoon we're going to be having a look at their leadership in action. We're going to create some hypothetical and entirely imaginary organisations, and we're going to watch how they evolve and what decisions are made in them. Now, you may think this is a bit pointless and a waste of time. Many people have. Sometimes these events can turn out to be a little strange. But if you think it's got nothing to do with reality, I'd invite you to think again. Truth is stranger than fiction. And the truth is that many of our organisations are actually quite imaginary. Imaginary in that they live in the imagination of our people in a far more real way than they live on the mission statement or in the flowchart. In the shared meanings, relationships and stories of the organisation, what they actually are on the ground emerges. Some consultants work with a concept called the organisation in the mind. What's actually happening in the minds of the people in the organisation is the reality, not what we might happen to think it is.